All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this April Poetry Month series of Notes from the Field. Uh, Poetry Hour Notes from the Field. Sorry. My name is Marcelo Hernandez Castillo, your poet laureate for Yuba and Sutter counties, and I am part of the Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture programming. As you know, there are a bunch of new events going on in April at the Sutter Theater particular, or the new Sutter Theater venue. Take a look at the website for events coming up. And today it is my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome Mariana Goicoechea, uh, poet, educator extraordinaire, hailing from Queens, New York. Um, Mariana, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to hear some of the poems that you're going to be reading, talking about them in a little bit, and talking a little bit more broadly about your work. Mariana is a graduate student at the Ashland MFA program. She has published widely, and I will link some of her work into the notes here in the comments so you can check them out for yourself. Mariana, I will pass over the mic to you and step aside, and then I'll come back right here.
Wow, I'm smiling from ear to ear. This is really just pure joy and bliss. I'm blessed. Thank you. Wow, published widely. I don't even have a book yet, Marcelo. Not a book out yet, but I am published in the Accentals Review, the Sulky Lit Mag, as well as some other places, the Rumpus, quite a few places. But I'm honored, really. Thank you. So I guess I'll start with a few pieces, and then I kind of have like pre-chosen pieces, if that makes sense. And let me just access them. I'm so sorry. Bear with me, Marcelo. Um,
No, you're fine. Thank you.
um, oh dear. Let me go to my. You know what? Not very smart. I didn't think to already have it ready. I should have had it ready before the recording. Bear with me.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
but in the meantime, we can start talking, Marcelo. So how did you become part of this project here?
So this project is kind of like one of the projects that I lead as poet laureate. And it's really just getting a wide array of different poets talking about their work, poets from around the country, and we've just had a really wide array of nonfiction writers to memoirists, novelists, um, to come in and just talk about their writing. We have some writers who stream in, and we always love to hear kind of how poets go about their work, how they go about the subjects that they choose, and I have a bunch of questions that we can talk about, like what is your process when
Yeah.
writing, um, and so
La
as you're look.
pregunta del millón. I feel like it's a very common question, right? That we all get asked. What's your process? Because it's fascinating, right? It looks different for everyone, and some people don't even regard it as a process. So
Yeah.
cool.
While you're pulling that up, I haven't done this before, but I was thinking about it. We were just talking, for those of you who are Mariana and I were just talking before the recording about like some of the new work, and some of the new work that is very rooted in the situational circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I don't usually write in my like on my phone, and that's been something like really weird and new. Um,
It's weird. I find myself resisting it, and I don't know if it's because I'm not ready or because I also recognize that I can self obstruct where like I don't know if it's a good thing, because that's another fascinating thing about process is that I don't think there's such thing as a good process or a bad process. It's what ultimately works for you. And I noticed that what works for me, and by no means am I promoting or imposing drug usage, but I smoke cannabis. Like weed for me is a portal to the divine and speaking to my ancestors. And in fact, I have a poem about that, right? Um, so to me, it's more like I feel that I have to wait. Um, one of the really great takeaways I took from um, a writing workshop I took in New York City, it's going to be 7 years. It's amazing how time passes. Her name is Vanessa Martir, and she is an amazing writer, essayist, widely published. Check her out. She has done a lot of collaborations with Long Reads, with the Rumpus. She did a really fantastic mother wound project with interventions with NYU's Latinx project. But she pretty much is one of the writers in New York City that really coined the term or really started the mother wound movement. Um, in in the genre of creative nonfiction. But I digress. I mention her because it was actually through memoir that I came to poetry.
Hmm.
Um, and so my that has sort of been my process of sort of like finding my way and finding what works for me. What are the habits that work for me? Not everybody got to be an Ernest Hemingway. You know what I'm saying? And wake up at 5 a.m. and use 7 pencils. You know what I mean? Like if you used 7 pencils, like down to the last like piece of lead, that means that was a good writing day. Like that's ridiculous, right? We got bills to pay, we got kids to take care of. You know what I mean? Like we got jobs to look for. Like I'm in the middle of a job search. That's why I'm in this hotel room. But all of this to say, um what's worked for me and the positive takeaway from that class is sometimes you cannot write when you're in the shit. That's what she said. Sometimes you can't write when you're in the thick of it, you know. I remember that I was writing a lot about my mom because my mother had just passed away, and one of the most beautiful nuggets of wisdom that she gave me, she said, you write so much about your mother in death, which I understand because you just lost her, and that grief is very very fresh in the flesh. um, but I want to see her in life. Write about your mother in life.
Mhm.
And I needed that distance in order to do that. And it was like only after 3 years of taking countless workshops with Vanessa, not only did I find my voice, but I was able to write my mother in life.
Nice.
And I wrote this poem called Maria, Patron Saint of Freaks, which was the first poem where I wrote about my mother in life. And it ended up getting published in the UK. You never know who's reading your work. You never know who wants your work. Um, so yeah, that was a very long detour, but so you know what? That's a beautiful segue. Why don't we start with Maria, Patron Saint of Freaks?
Let's do it.
So, awesome. Um, sorry. Uh, sometimes the Wi-Fi here is like very, slow.
One of the reasons to love, but also hate hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Sometimes love being disconnected, but also I need to get some work done. A plug for hotel rooms. I miss hotel rooms since COVID, which is why, in other circumstances,
Yeah.
we would have you here, perhaps on a visit to California, so that we could do a live show. But you know, given the circumstances with COVID,
Yeah.
um,
So
but maybe in
Maria,
the future.
yes.
Okay, I'll just say
Maria, Patron Saint of Freaks. You were a bitch to everyone you knew, including your own kids. You wore opium Yves Saint Laurent to clean Mr. Schwartz's house and wore every piece of South American gold on your skin. You were as tacky as a Russian woman wearing a fur coat on Brighton Beach in July. Dicho de mami número uno. Antes muerta que sencilla. Your mouth was dirtier than a pig and slop. But oh, were you so happy. You said mierda and chinga so effortlessly. One mistook them for silk. Puta, cuca, chimba, no joda. Hear those A's in the last syllables? Lyrics to a song I will never forget. Cunt was the only word in English you learned to say without an accent. Coños, so strategic that you'd mistake them for moves on a chessboard. But this filth was always at the threshold of truth and never at the stoop of a lie. your tongue a holy grail. Dicho de mami número dos. Sobre dicho, no hay engaño. You hated church and cussed out folks that were all about la palabra de Dios, but turned their back on Marlene when she had to sell crack to feed her kids. Dicho de mami número tres. Los que andan con la Biblia debajo del brazo, menos cristianos son. God created the seventh day, and yet your small brown hands never saw a day of rest. Maya Angelou spoke of black maids wearing masks, too proud to bend and too poor to break. Like that one time Scott fired you because his 3-year-old son didn't like that you refused to give him his Spider Man stickers. Scott's ego left you a check with the doorman. You never came to pick it up. And that's how you taught me dignity. Dicho de mami número cuatro, respétate a ti primero. Or that one time I wanted to take all the trash out at the same time, and the bags ripped in the middle of Mister's kitchen. Dicho de mami número cinco, el perezoso trabaja doble. You crossed borders, leaving your footprints in sand, the way we're taught to believe Jesus does when he carries you. But you carried yourself here with the dead in your blood and the Mayan jungle on your broken feet, tired before they touched new, lily white land that would exhaust you more. You came here empty handed, only to leave empty handed. Dicho de mami número 6. Si no se caga por la entrada, se caga por la salida. You boarded planes, crossed borders, entered prison gates, mopped sunlit kitchens on Madison Avenue, and owned hot bodega corners. The baddest bitch through it all. Posthumous dicho number 1. I stopped breathing at 58. When will you breathe again, cabrona? Ponte las pilas and write this shit down. So, speaking of process, I got emotional reading that poem because it's the first time I've read that poem. In fact, I don't think I've ever performed that poem ever. Marcelo, I think I performed it once in an intimate setting with Vanessa and her crew. We went, funny enough, upstate. Back in the day, we used to do these retreats pre-pandemic. They were called Sankofa. And it was like an all women of color sort of retreat. It wasn't formal. It was just like a thing that we did. Alicia Santos was the woman who ran it. And she also runs the Writing the Womb writing series here in New York. That was pre-pandemic, mind you. And that was the only time I performed. It was in a room full of those women. And when I was done with that poem, we were like drunk and high and shit. It was fun. But I shouldn't say that. We were just happy, like just basking in our divine feminine, and we were so free. Um, and the roars in the room because I something shifted in me. And that was in 2017. It's 2022. And it's incredible how what I was writing in 2017, as I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what my book is about. And I didn't even conceive of this book at that moment, at the time. So all of this to say, going back to process, and I think we talked about this last time, Marcelo, is that y'all, the stuff that you're writing about, it will never leave you. It's just gonna keep coming up again in different forms. It'll be a haiku, it'll be a haiku, it'll be an essay. And it's incredible. In 2017, I was already writing about labor and dignity, and I didn't even know it. I thought this was just bringing my mother from the dead and talking about who she was in life. And look what was all underneath, hidden in plain sight. You know?
Yeah, and that finding your subject matters, even though you think you know what you're writing about, those the subject matters that want to come to the surface most will reveal themselves. And so slowly, like you say, I had my book before I knew I had my book. And looking back, like even at old journals or at old work, I also recognize like it was right there. It was just a matter of like, things kind of like shifting into place, but it was all there. And so we are writing kind of those things over and over, not in a repetitive way, but in an evolving way.
I love that because as you were talking about that, and this is very spur of the moment, like just listening to
Mm-hmm.
you, is like in order for your poetry to evolve, you need to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very big. I'm a moon bitch. Like I'm my friend Aisha, the one that works on 90 Day Fiance, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, that was her LinkedIn. I'm sorry. When you like, I was like, yo, pull her up. Um, it's like I will never forget. Me and Vanessa went to it. Like I think we had like an end of. It was like with all the people who had taken the workshop with her, and we had like a goodbye party, and it was like also very like feminine healing. And I was at the cusp of turning 30. So this was 2016. And there was a woman at that party who was very quiet, very much like sitting in the corner observing everybody. And I could tell there was just like this air of wisdom to her. She was also older, but not like significantly older, but just like an older woman. And I said out loud, like, I was like, hey, y'all, like, I'm gonna turn 30. Um, what advice do you have for a 30-year-old? And because I was, going through my Saturn return. That's what I mean by being a moon bitch. Like I'm very woo woo and I believe in birth charts and sidereal, tropical zodiac. And then this woman who was sitting, humbly, quietly in the corner. And it was like her presence felt like thunder, but her voice was so gentle and it was so beautiful. And she said the simplest thing that changed my life. And she's like, you need to start healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't heal, it's going to follow you in your 30s. It will follow you into your 40s. It will follow you into your 50s, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then you know what happened? That was 2016. By January 2017, I got a therapist and I've been with that
Mm.
therapist ever since.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So heal because when you spiritually evolve, yes, there is of course the logical like people need counseling. I'm not saying like go to your tarot cards, yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, yes, pray to your ancestors, smoke that weed, kill a chicken if you have to quote Dennis Smith, you know,
Mhm.
to quote them. Um, but heal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, and that's so important because I think there's like a popular belief that like to make art you have to be not just like it tapped into a different reality, but like somehow like this idea of like the suffering artist, that that's where art comes from. And it's been when I'm most stable that I get that I'm most productive.
Mm,
When I have like you say, like when I have healed in some way that I can remove myself enough from like the thick of it in order to put it on the page. And so like for me it's when I have been most emotionally stable, you know, had my life, my medications right, and all of that. That that the work has actually come. And that's not to say that work doesn't come when you're in a more difficult place,
yeah.
but it's both writing. It's both different parts of writing. Um,
I love what Kiersey Lehman said on his Facebook status because he's always up on Facebook and like he'll be really some of his musings are amazing and they're
mhm,
just like simple Facebook posts. They're not even. I was like, yo, this is already. But that's Kiersey Lehman. Like that's what he does, and I love the play that he does. I am writing and writing, like I am writing, but I'm also making things right. I
mhm.
love. I am writing, but writing. RIG.
Okay, right, yeah, 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 yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? Like that
yeah.
homonym, but also like how that's so right. Like it's there. It's what we're doing. We're writing and we're writing because and forgive yourselves for what you wrote. Like you should see the poems I wrote about my therapist. I cringe. I was like, "Fuck you, white man," and that's another thing too that I learned about the healing is that your healing is gonna come to you in the most ironic ways.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go get a white therapist. I'm I'm just saying like I'm all here for like black girl therapy and like working with your people and like I think that's
Hmm.
super essential.
Yeah.
Um But because so much of the damage has been done by white people, especially white men,
Mm,
it's interesting to see how the healing came back through them in these sort of mirrors.
mm,
And so my therapist, Jeff, he's like, I'm going to listen to you. We're also
mm,
close in age, so that helps.
mm,
And he's like, I want to give you the tools so that you suture your own wound. And that's another thing, too, that I learned in this writing process. You know how we say that writing is also a lonely act or it's a
yeah,
solitary act? Like we've heard about that, right?
yeah.
And I've learned that sometimes solitary does not mean lonely. Like to quote
Mm,
Ocean Vuong, loneliness is still time spent with the world.
spent
Love
with
it.
the world, yeah.
And
I love
so
that.
um being alone has given me the time to really sit and think clearly about my pain and to know that it is an endless reserve of beauty. I
Mm-hmm,
will always have beauty to hold from my pain.
mm-hmm,
And I needed to be alone to discover that.
yeah.
Um because a friend of mine, it also helps when you have other friends who are in therapy because they will tell you like a really great friend of mine, she's like, Mariana, I hate to break it to you, but mama, your mother wound, that's and your father wound, has a whole other thing. That is yours to close. And it
Mm,
sucks and it's lonely. But you're not alone. It's lonely because you have to do it alone. Does that make sense? Like it sucks that
yeah,
you have to do it
yeah.
alone, but know that even if you are alone in the operating room, when you come out, you're gonna have a bevy of people waiting for you to
Mm-hmm,
hold you.
yeah,
And you're gonna be so empowered because you did that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it's this this also goes back to like what we were talking about, like grief can be productive, as you mentioned, and that at the end of it, like there, I really like how you put it of about beauty. You said it was a
An endless reserve.
endless reserve of beauty. I was thinking of
Me.
this line that I've been thinking about of Larry Levis. He says, "After all, beauty has only three possible endings, and only one of them is bearable."
Oof.
I know, and I've been
Who
thinking
wrote that? I'm sorry.
Larry Levis.
Oh, Larry. Yes, you talked about him in the summer workshop. Yes.
Yeah, and I've been, I've been thinking about that a lot of of finding like beauty in the pain, um, beauty in the grief, and beauty through it. Um, because yes, we deal in metaphor, we deal in language as poets, but we're artists first and foremost, and artists are concerned with beauty and what is beautiful and challenging values of beauty and offering new ideas of beauty. Maybe that can be like a segue to invite you to maybe read another poem.
Yeah. So you know what? New shit. Let me read the new.
Yeah.
This one is called Armor, and it's the Flash nonfiction piece that started off as a poem. Um, and this is also back to like this idea of process, right? Like part of process is letting go and letting the piece or letting the story tell you what it wants to be. And this piece wanted to be this. So, um, Armor. I teach in an all boys school, which means most students treat me like their nanny. Many are neutral. Others draw dicks on index cards and tell me they're space rockets. Boys will be boys. The male teachers and fathers of prospective students will catch a quick glimpse of my soft breasts, their backs turned by the time I say good morning. I too have gotten a good read of the backs of their cowardly necks and wedding bands. Men are just naturally more visual. In January, on the eve of the first anniversary of the storming of the Capitol, a sixth grader anonymously sent me pornography in a Zoom chat and typed, "You can never tell by looking at me, but I don't like spics and Negroes." I read somewhere once that the more pain Frida Kahlo felt in her final months, the bigger her skirts were, her jewels more extravagant, the brighter her weepings. I admire how, even in her moment of defeat, Frida dripped in opulence of her choosing and favor. I have 2 months left before the school year ends and never return. Now I show up every day like it's my first day on the job. Cobalt blue dresses and pashmina scarves with shimmery thread woven into them. Long batas from Yucatan, Guatemalan rebosos, a leopard print turtleneck with the cloth hoop earrings to match. Snakeskin boots and denim jumpers too, the black faux fur coat. And the other maraschino cherry red one with a funky eye design on the sleeves and back. A turquoise necklace with pendants resembling teeth that I left on my ancestral altar the night before. I have other divine pieces. Celeste and indigo earrings made from recycled plastic. The mother of pearl earrings from my best friend, gifted from Peru. My favorite hematite ring. Gold bangles for my right wrist. Thin silver bracelets for the left. My eleques for the days I need Chango to fight alongside Obatala when he's too tired. My peach candy acrylics with three tiny rhinestones at the cuticles of both middle fingers. My black combat boots that I contrast with a black corduroy jumper and a burgundy turtleneck. My arsenal has only kept growing, my artillery more sophisticated. Chanel, Vanille Insensé, Joe Malone's Scarlet Poppy, my dead mother's Opium by Yves Saint Laurent, all for my beautiful, brown, plump body. Bulgarian rose cream for my face, bringing out the natural indigenous blush in my cheekbones. When I wear that cadmium orange tunic that everyone loves, I feel like a nuclear missile on the verge of takeoff. What I love more than reclaiming my dignity is my nerve to make it glamorous. I'm unaware if the men still stare. They no longer occupy any space in my body, and that is my biggest trophy from this place. The women stay mostly silent, or nod, or ask where I got the coats. The popular boys snicker and laugh. Then there are the more innocent ones, the babies who haven't yet learned how much the world wants them to hate me. Some give me leftovers from snack time, chocolate chip granola bars, animal crackers, or those nasty veggie flavored chips. A ninth grader dug into his pocket before class and laid his change on the desk as if I were Oshun or a Roman fountain. The custodians and cooks, my people, from El Salvador to the Honduran coast to the mountains of Puerto Rico and the DR, call me by the many names my dad used to call me: Reina, Muñeca, Tigueraza. I am loving this quiet war from the entrance to the faculty lounge to the cafeteria to the hallways. I'm so honored to be on these stages as I kill with no weapons nor wrinkles. Every white and blinding gaze is a Joan of Arc, tied at the stake, screaming from the pit of her bowels the names of saints and archangels who never come to save her. I strike the first match with a sachet and a clack from my black pumps. I twirl and stand still in glory, resplendent, divine, mine. Treat me like fire, I announce without uttering a word.
Woo! Damn, that's new work.
That's new work.
Oh my god. The greater her pain, the longer her dresses. Um, yeah, I mean, there's you heard it here. You heard it here first, or maybe one of many times. You'll be hearing a lot from Mariana. Um,
Wow.
and that book is gonna drop and is going to splash. Um, thank you for that beautiful poem. Again, every
So
time that we
emotional. It's wow. It's like it's out of my system, and I felt so. I'm high. I'm on a high.
Mhm.
I'm so free. Thank you. Thank you for that release. Thank you for giving me the space to release that pain. Yeah.
it's it's wild to be able to be present for those kinds of moments
Yeah.
and to know that that you are witnessing not only the like burgeoning of a poem but also like a release. And you just kind of know when a poem is something uh, that is close to the heart versus something that is just to be a poem. So every time we have a conversation, like I'm also always taking notes, and like it's a back and forth dialogue.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate reading that new work. I'm blown away by it. Um, you know,
Thank you so much. And it's amazing how, like, I know I sound like I'm contradicting myself, especially after saying that what but that positive takeaway from Vanessa's workshop when I was in my 20s. Like, you can't write when you're in the shit. This is the first piece I've ever written where I was able to write while I'm still in it. Right? I'm still
mm,
in it. Like, I have to go back
mm-hmm,
to work on it, right?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
still gonna be rocking, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But here's the thing, it goes back to what we were talking about, healing, and because I'm healing, right? I
yeah,
I am in the space, I'm in the mental space now where I can write about that pain,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And
And
I'm
from
yeah, I'm happy.
yeah, yeah. Um, Mariana, I could literally just go on for another 2 3
Yeah,
hours.
but thank you so much. I'm
Um,
honored, and I hope
th-
this was a fruitful conversation. I tend to digress. I'm loca, but I hope it
oh
made
my
sense
God,
for the
yes. I mean, this is
opinion.
this is this has been one of the most wonderful conversations I think we've had on this broadcast, on this show. So I really want to thank you for joining us. And yes, let's make sure we do something similar in the future when things start opening them back up in person.
Yay!
Um,
Love it.
so thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you
And
so much. I'm honored. Thank you to everyone. Thank you. I can't see you.
yeah, it's a weird, but it's a weird space, especially because it's only us. But it gets streamed, and so please take a look at Mariana's work. I will put some links up in the comments.
Yeah.
And again, thank you, Mariana, so much. I
Yes.
will end.
My love. Shout out to Thomas Fucloro, Reina Leon from Accentus
Oh,
Review, Vanessa
Reina.
Martin, Elizabeth Vasquez. I'm very New York, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx in the house, Uptown, where you at? Love y'all.
Thank you, Mariana.